As a guy who spends every single minute of his spare time on the internet, watching videos, reading articles, doing all the research that I can possibly research, why is it I've never seen a single voting machine glitch that favors Donald Trump? Why is it that any of these voting irregularities never err on the side of Republicans? They never err on the side of Donald J. Trump. We're going to talk about this because there's more. I keep getting more and more videos. I see more and more posts, more and more articles about voter irregularities, and every single one of them favors one side of the political aisle. Whether you are a Republican or a Democrat, that should be concerning to you. If a legitimate election happens and it happens to be a Democrat, so be it. But these voting irregularities, people waiting in lines, they're waiting in lines in the counties that have been flipped red by people like Scott Presler. The voting machines, when people are selecting Donald Trump, it's automatically selecting Kamala Harris, never the other way around. We've got some serious issues to deal with. This is we have to keep our eyes open. We as voters have to do our due diligence and make sure that our votes are being counted properly. But this is what we're going to talk about today. It's a great topic. Let's get into it. I'm Jared. This is Continue Freedom. Okay, and welcome back to Continue Freedom. If this is your first time here, welcome aboard. Be sure to like, subscribe, leave comments below. We're on X Locals, Rumble, and YouTube, though I don't post to Locals all the time. But definitely, Rumble is the safe place to be because my videos get throttled like crazy over on YouTube. But anyway, it's important that we pay attention to our celebrity types. This is from the Babylon Bee. Diddy's ex-girlfriend, a very reputable source, urges Americans to trust her judgment and vote for Kamala Harris. The Babylon Bee, if you don't follow them, I mean, you absolutely have to. They come through 100% of the time. It's absolutely wild. But anyway, good one from the Babylon Bee. Thank you guys for making us laugh in the midst of all this political turmoil. So I showed this video yesterday, but I'm going to show it again. This is in Kentucky. And in Kentucky, they had some issues with the voting machines, and coming out loud there. They have admitted that, yes, this is a problem. We identified this as a problem. We're working to rectify this problem. But check this out. Trying to select Donald Trump. You can't select Donald Trump. You can't select Donald Trump. Finally, when you click it, and it selects Kamala Harris for you. Oh, very interesting. This is why we have to pay attention. So we got to do our due diligence. I mean, we know that. They're going to try to undermine us, to slip one by us at every possible opportunity. And this is one instance, but this is a video that has become viral, but it's been acknowledged that this was a problem in many of the voting machines. And we have to make sure that when it prints it out, because this was another one that I posted yesterday, people were selecting Donald Trump, but when it was printing out in the machine, because this is a selection machine, you make your selection, then it prints out the filled out ballot, and you give that to the folks to actually be counted. And when they were handing it over, they had selected Donald Trump, but the block it had actually filled in was Kamala Harris. So it's very easy for somebody to pick Donald Trump and say, yep, I chose went all the way down the ballot, picked all the Republicans or whatever, and handed over to them. And some of those votes have been switched in the machine, and they're none the wiser because they didn't double check their work. So when we go through and we're doing this early voting, make sure that what is printed out by these just horrible automatic, mechanized devices, you talk about computer systems running our elections, make sure that it's doing the right thing, because we've seen the Secretary of State now of Colorado who leaked the passwords to the voting machines. We saw some folks in Pennsylvania. A guy found a sheet, like a password sheet that had logins and passwords for voting machines. This is on, by the way, on the early voting, which is supposed to go a bit quicker because the turnout is typically a lot less. It's spread out over a longer period of time. On election day, that's where we're going to see these massive crowds of people showing up to vote. And this is where, in the confusion, it's much easier for them to rig the system, for them to steal the election, and for them to, for mistakes like this to pass us by. And, in Pennsylvania, we are seeing some really crazy stuff. Scott Presler, He posted, I think it was this one Pressler's? Nope, this was Marjorie Taylor Greene that posted this one. So, okay, got it. You might not like MTG. I'm not a huge fan of her rhetoric, the way she talks about stuff either, although she's right about a lot of things. I'm just not a huge fan of her delivery. That's okay. It's different flavors, different strokes for different folks. But look at these lines. These are people that are in Pennsylvania waiting to vote. And in some of these instances, they are putting like 1 or 2 poll workers at the stations where they have monstrous crowds of people. This is a version of election interference. Make no mistake about it. This is a version of election interference. Another instance was in Pennsylvania. This is the one, I think, with Scott Presler. So Jack Posobiec had reposted Scott Presler's, this is from The Persistence. If you want to follow him, The Persistence, Scott Presler. And check this out. This is people in a county, by the way.
Presler, it's after
Listen.
7 o'clock, and here are the voters that are still waiting in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. This is a county that we have flipped from blue to red this year, and still, voters 3 hours after the line was supposedly closed are still waiting to vote.
Okay, so Scott Presler has been on this tirade in places like Pennsylvania to get the vote out. He's doing ballot harvesting, the same thing that the Democrats have said is perfectly legal that they should do. So the Republicans, in response to that, said, "Well, let's find the guy to do that." Who was the guy? The guy was Scott Presler, and Scott Presler hit the ground running, being paid by the RNC to go out ballot harvesting, getting people to register to vote, and he's doing it all above board. Ballot harvesting has gotten a dirty name, and I think that it's a terrible way for us to get people out to vote. But it's something the Democrats were using, so the Republicans said, "Well, we're going to do it as well." And Scott Presler is just the most vocal, the most active of the ballot harvesting folks, and he is literally flipping counties in Pennsylvania. Record numbers of Republicans coming out to vote and registering to vote, beating the Democrats in their ballot harvesting game, in some cases by 50%, 100%. I mean, it is really, really wild. And so what do? They say, "Oh, this is dangerous. We might actually flip this county." Scott Presler has, by the way. But this county might actually flip from purple to red or from blue to red. So let's just put 2 ballot workers there, 2 poll workers there. So when people go to vote, they have to sit in line for 3, 4, 5, 6 hours in some cases. It's crazy. And yet, this is a form of election interference. By saying we're going to limit people's access, make people wait. There was another video I was watching, a lady in Pennsylvania, and she went to go vote and sat in line for 3 hours. They said that was just to submit her paperwork that would then take another hour for them to return to her so that she could go in and cast her vote. So now you're talking about half a day for one person to actually place their vote. I walked in East Tennessee. I took a pen, my ballot. They checked my ID, by the way. And if you watched my video yesterday, you saw that in California, the family that went in to vote, and they said, "We can't even look at your ID. Not even authorized to look at your ID. Oh, your signatures don't match. Oh, okay, well, that's weird. Here, look at my ID. No, I can't look at your ID. Just sign this piece of paper and say that this signature kerfuffle is okay. That's all we need from you. All you have to do is sign it, and then we'll count your vote." It's crazy. But by telling people, "Hey, you got to go sit in line for 6 hours," and this one lady that I was referencing in the video, she said, "Well, we had dinner reservation, so I'm going to have to come back and try again on election day," turning people away. Similarly, in Pennsylvania, we're telling people, this is a video I showed in my last video, people showing up and the poll workers saying, "Here, just fill out your ballot, give it to me, and I'll make sure it gets into the machine." No, no, no. In East Tennessee, I filled out my ballot. This took minutes, by the way. I go in, I show them my ID. I go to a station, they print out my ballot. They after they obviously confirmed who I was, they print out my ballot. I fill it in with a pen. I go put it into the machine myself. Nobody else ever touches it. Not a single person touches it. It's me filling it in, having it counted, leaving, and it takes minutes. And yet Pennsylvania says, Now let's limit the number of poll workers. Let's complicate the process. Let's do whatever we can to inject computer systems and nefarious people, corrupt people, into this voting process, because that opens up the opportunity for fraud. This is why they do this. This is why they say we're doing it in the name of look, I mean, Joe Rogan has said this, and where I vehemently disagree with him is that we're this rich country, we're this powerful country, we got technology. All we got to do should be, get on your cell phone, open up the app, and be able to vote. Absolutely not. I mean, look at X. X is chock full of bots, right? I mean, these digital platforms open us up to so much corruption. It has to stop. And they're going to keep doing it. As long as we let them get away with it, they're going to keep doing it. But, there's I think those are the only ones that I was going to show. Oh, here, no, this is a video. This is kind of changing topics, getting away from the election just a little bit about the election process. And let's talk about the people on the left side of the aisle. This is a video, one of probably thousands that are out there, or not probably, one definitely of thousands that are out there. White liberal women. I won't say liberal women. I will say leftist women. These women here in a coffee shop accosted these black women who were having a conversation about how they were going to vote for Donald Trump. Listen to how they talk to these people. If you need any indicator of what they think of, this compartmentalization of people based on immutable characteristics, this is how leftist politics has to operate, and this is what it creates. Angry white liberal women who will accost black women in a coffee shop, telling them how bad they are for voting for Donald Trump. Listen to this.
Am I liberal? Do I disagree? Are you a Democrat? Yes, I am. Okay. The only people. So I work for the only people who ever challenged. Why did you do the only people who ever just shut your women. Listen, I'm a it means that you understand what something is. Okay. I think we balance sex offender and accused of espionage, indicted for espionage. Like I said, the only people who ever challenge me are white Democrat women. I am a 35-year national security expert.
So are you paid by Lockheed, Boeing? Which one of those big, national security, entities are you working for? You work for the FBI? Oh boy, well we know we know your politics if you work for the FBI. Let's keep listening.
Okay,
Stop. Everybody can believe in what they want to believe.
No, thank you. Will you tell her we were having a private conversation before she came over in my face saying, "Am I serious?" So no, don't talk to me. Talk to her. You and I already know. You and I already know who is the one. Yeah, you and I already know. So take your attention right over here.
Good for you, lady. Good for you, ma'am. Yeah.
Denial.
Oh.
Watch out, lady.
She's like, don't get in my face. Oh, that's wonderful. That's so great. I love seeing this stuff. People fighting back against these white liberal know-it-all women, or leftist know-it-all women. Liberal women, I put Tulsi Gabbard in the arena of liberal women, and I have immense respect for Tulsi Gabbard and what she's been able to accomplish, and just she is a liberal. She's not a leftist. These leftist women think that they can come in here and just buck up on a strong black woman. That ain't gonna happen, especially one that's supporting Donald Trump. It's like, nope, not gonna happen. Get out of here. Oh wow! But the narrative. This is another example of the narrative falling apart. Right. This narrative that is it's all about immutable characteristics. It's about dividing us as a society. And there's even folks in the media who are, rejecting a lot of this. This is Hugh Hewitt. He works for the Washington Post, and this is, if you want to see a train wreck, I have to admit, seeing a train wreck live on the internet, I didn't watch it live. I watched it, after the fact, just this clip. But they were live, and watching WAPO, just Washington Post, just have an absolute meltdown. If there's anything to illustrate the collapse of leftism in America and the slow collapse of this media establishment. It's this interview right here. Like, check this out.
Like this week, Donald Trump is laying the groundwork for contesting the election by complaining that cheating was taking place in Pennsylvania by suing Bucks County for alleged irregularities. And this is on top of his continual assertion that if he loses, it's because of cheating.
Yeah, he's been laying the groundwork for this, just not in the last week, but in the last umpty-ump months. No election can be fair in Donald Trump's mind, unless Donald Trump wins it. And I think we are going to see him both rev up his supporters to contest elections outside of courtrooms and go to every courtroom he can in America where it's relevant to make whatever arguments he can, no matter how far-fetched. We saw
Jonathan,
that
I've
work
got
out last time, but it didn't work out
Ruth
this time.
finish,
It
Hugh.
may not work. That may not happen this time. And now I'll let you go, Hugh.
Well, I've just got to say, we're news people, even though we're at the opinion section. It's got to be reported. Bucks County was reversed by the court and instructed to open up extra days because they violated the law and told people to go home. So that lawsuit was brought by the Republican National Committee, and it was successful. The Supreme Court ruled that Glenn Youngkin was successful. We are news people, even though we have opinions, and we have to report the whole story if we bring up part of the story. So yes, he's upset about Bucks County, but he was right, and he won in court. That's the story.
Well, stunned silence.
I'll let you keep going, Jonathan.
No, I don't appreciate being lectured about reporting when many times you come here saying lots of things that aren't.
I won't
based
come
in
back,
fact.
Jonathan. I'm done. I'm done. This is the most unfair election ad I have ever been a part of. You guys are working. That's fine. I'm done.
It gets better.
So, Ruth, you wrote a column
It
this
gets
week
better.
ending with this line, and actually, I think this is perfect. We're going to put it on the screen. You wrote, "You want to know the stakes of this election? Not only democracy, but decency." Talk more about that, Ruth.
Okay, I'm collecting myself.
Then her camera freezes.
Oh, Ruth froze. Ruth is frozen. So hang in there,
This guy
everyone.
floundered.
We're gonna see if we can try to get Ruth back.
It's
to
so cringy.
This, we're gonna get
He doesn't
Ruth
know what
back
to do.
in a moment. This is First Look, Washington Post Live's nonstop shop for news and analysis, and Ruth is back.
No,
I'm gonna
she's
read
not.
that quote back again from your column, Ruth, where you wrote, "You want to know the stakes of this election? Not only democracy,
It's like a
but
train wreck.
decency."
We lost her.
Okay.
This is supposed to be a professional news agency. I can have somebody come on this podcast, and I have, and we can talk uninterrupted for an hour and a half, and Washington Post Live can't make it happen. Oh my goodness. It's like a train wreck, but this is the beauty of it, right? This is seeing the whole system collapse and cave in around themselves. Hugh Hewitt says, look, yeah, gotcha. We got opinions, but if you're going to mention the story, you have to give both aspects of it. You have to give the facts around the story and then interject your facts interject your opinion upon the facts and how you think it should have gone, could have gone, whatever. But so he walks off, he quits, and then the other lady freezes. I mean, and then this just mindless commentator sits here and waffles. He just waffles and waffles and well, I don't even know what to talk about. I can't think of anything to talk about. I don't know. It's not on the cue cards. The cue cards had us talking for another 20 minutes. Oh, it's crazy. But it's happening even at CNN. You know, sometimes I think that I will see a glimmer of hope in news agencies like CNN, propaganda agencies like CNN. And Jake Tapper, he actually live fact-checked Kamala Harris, which is shocking to say the least. Jake Tapper is no friend of the Republicans. He's no friend of the right. But what I hope to see one day are agencies like CNN and MSNBC, or no, not MSNBC. It'll never change. That's just a leftist drag. It's rags. It's garbage. But I would love to see a CNN or an NBC or an ABC go back to, hey, here's the facts. Here's the news. Here's what actually happened. Now you, the viewer, make your own decision about how to interpret those facts or what you think of those facts. CNN's Jake Tapper issued a live fact check of Democratic presidential candidate Kamala Harris after she said at a Phoenix rally on Thursday that Trump would do what he wants, whether the women like it or not. And I'm going to play this for you because it's worth playing, and because most news agencies wouldn't play it. But here you go. Listen to what Jake Tapper actually said.
He was going to do something for women, whether they like it or not, whether the women like it or not. He was talking about protecting women, whether they like it or not. Certainly, you can take issue with the language, but it wasn't. He wasn't saying he was just going to do whatever he wanted, regardless of Anyway, well,
and here's the
anyway. But let's talk. I mean, but you take my point. You don't disagree, right? I'm saying I'm going to protect them, whether the women want me to protect them, whether right.
And some would say that's misogynist, and that's.
But it's not as she presented it.
I think. Look, ultimately, I think we have to be careful in these last days. We did this in 2016. He's going to say something horrible, ridiculous, over the line.
So just quote it accurately.
No, that's not my point. I just don't think we need to say every update.
Look how hard it is for them just to say, correct. He was misquoted. Kamala Harris misquoted Donald Trump. When he said that I'm going to do it, whether the women want me to or not, he said, we have to protect our women. We have to protect our women. And this is that. And I'm going to protect them, whether the women want me to or not. And then this got played back, by the way, as an ad talking about abortion and talking about, their right to choose. I'm going to do it whether women want me to or not. It got completely misconstrued in an ad, first off. Second off, it continues to get misquoted by the presidential candidate for the left. And just to see them floundering, this lady here floundering, and Jake Tapper probably took heat for taking that stance and saying, you know what, look, let's at least quote the guy properly. Let's quote him correctly. That's a monstrous shift for somebody like Jake Tapper, or fake Tapper, as Donald Trump likes to call him. But I keep seeing these little glimmers where even people like Jake Tapper will turn around and be like, okay, maybe I'm on the wrong side of this. Maybe I need to, he needs to do what Cuomo has done and, separate himself from this corporate media establishment. And there's so many, there are some, I don't think Jake Tapper's an intelligent guy. I'll be perfectly honest. I've yet to see that. I'm sure he is. I'm sure he's a very intelligent commentator. But when they get into this mainstream media funk, right, into that system, it becomes this teleprompter, purely scripted. They never say anything outside of the left and right limits of the party, of their party line. And there are some talented folks who can actually come out and have a conversation off of a teleprompter, who have thoughts of their own, but they're not able to cultivate that when they work for one of these mainstream outlets. And I keep thinking maybe CNN will just take the blinders off, or they'll take the governor off of their media personalities and let them be who they are. And if they're wildly far left, they'll be rejected by the majority of Americans and they won't be watched. If they are wildly far right, they'll be rejected by a lot of folks. But if they play, if they're actually a news anchor and do what a news anchor is supposed to do, people will respect them, people will listen to them, and let the market decide. It's really wild that with an outlet that's probably worth it. I mean, I assume with their followers and all this stuff and their viewing audience of people in airports, which I think are the only ones that really pay a lot of attention to CNN anymore, that they would try to open themselves up to the market. It just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense to me. So I don't know. I just think that there are some of the ones that do have their pulse functions without the help of CNN. Abby Phillip, that she's a vacuous facade, right? She has absolutely nothing to offer to the American people except what is written on a teleprompter. That's the only way that she could perform, and she's a waste of space, right? But there are folks out there who probably have strong opinions that they should be able to voice on the mainstream media, on CNN, and CNN won't let them. And so they do it for a paycheck. But boy, the waters are nice out where you're not restricted, you're not limited, and you're not just following some silly party line. Okay, so the next thing that I'm going to talk about is Jordan Neely. So I don't know if you remember Jordan Neely. This is a very controversial case. Very controversial case. And, Jordan Neely and Daniel Penny. Daniel Penny is about to face trial. Jordan Neely was supposedly killed by Daniel Penny, and he is on trial right now for, I believe it was manslaughter. He's accused of manslaughter in the death of, let me start at the beginning here. Daniel Penny, a former Marine, accused of manslaughter in the death of homeless man Jordan Neely on an Uptown F train in Manhattan in 2023. Video from Neely's final moments was shown in court, and it revealed that by the time NYPD officers arrived, Neely still had a pulse. So here we go. We've got the video now, which has been released to the public, thank goodness, where you can see NYPD.
You got a pulse or no? I feel a pulse. You feel a pulse? You breathe,
yep.
Right?
Try it on the wrist. Try it on the wrist. This side.
You got a pulse. You got a pulse.
Yep, he's got a pulse. He's got a pulse. So he obviously wasn't killed by Jordan Neely. Well, what has come out now since all this has taken place? They had told him, the NYPD has come out with a statement and said, this man was dirty. He was obviously homeless. The officers didn't want to give him CPR because he was dirty. They were worried about getting hepatitis if he had come to and vomited or something like that. So the officers didn't give him CPR. Now, we know that now with CPR, it's just the chest compressions. You're not necessarily doing the breathing for similar reasons. But they could have given him he had a pulse, so they didn't need to give him chest compressions, but they weren't going to breathe into his mouth. So, hey, he's in custody at this point of the NYPD, and he died in custody of the NYPD. Yet the NYPD is trying to throw Daniel Penny under the bus to alleviate them of any liability, presumably. This is what happens when you live in a leftist city, everybody. Get out. If you're conservative. Or how about this? No, don't get out. Fix it. You principled people out there, go run for office in your leftist cities. Go, work your way up from the city council or from your local areas. Get involved in the politics of your local area. Start changing things. Because I said this from the beginning. This did not seem, the guy was threatening. Jordan Neely was threatening to kill people on an F train. Daniel Penny put the guy in a chokehold until they got to the next stop. Then this guy who they said, well, he killed him. No, he didn't. He was still alive when NYPD had him. I put him out, Penny said, when asked by police how Neely ended up on the floor. Officers then gave Narcan to Neely, and at 2:38 p.m. began CPR. Paramedics arrived at the scene at 2:48. At 3:13, Neely was still on the train being tended to by paramedics from Northwell Health. That is the end of the video. Neely was pronounced dead at Lenox Hospital. The prosecution told the court that the entire length of time from when Neely arrived on the train car to when he was restrained to when the door opened at the next train was just 30 seconds. They claim that Penny kept Neely restrained for another nearly 6 minutes. Penny's attorney, Thomas Kenneth, said that Penny was not squeezing his neck for the entire time because that would have resulted in Neely passing out within the first minute. Penny, he said, only intended to hold Neely until officers arrived, which took way longer than expected. Kenneth said it was 7 minutes between when officers were called to when they arrived. Officers further testified as to Neely's condition, saying that he was filthy and that they had to protect the officers. I wouldn't want my officer to get sick if the person throws up, said an officer. So here they are trying to throw the guy under the bus for protecting the people on the bus from a guy who was threatening to kill them. And the state of New York says, well, no, manslaughter. Now, this is what is this meant to do? Why would they do this? One is it's to protect the NYPD, protect the city from any liability, because as we can see now in the video, he had a pulse when he was in NYPD custody. He lost his pulse from the time of going into their custody to the time he got to the hospital for whatever reason. Obviously, they gave him Narcan. He was probably a drug addict. And the other part is that there's been a concerted effort, and we see this in states that with like things like the castle clause, right? We've got castle doctrine in a lot of states where if someone comes into your house, you can shoot and kill them. And there's a lot of states and a lot of leftists who want to get rid of castle doctrine because they think it's unjust, it's inhumane for you to protect yourself using lethal force. You and your family, by the way, your children who are also in your home. And this is a means to scare away Good Samaritans. We need to limit the acts of Good Samaritans. So if somebody does something, this is how a woman, it's a video that I spoke about it. It was probably a year ago. I think the event actually took place farther away. A woman was on a train, and for at least a half an hour, she was being violated, let's put it that way, in a very intimate way, by a gentleman on the bus, and not a single person did a single thing. Because when people get involved, and if the perpetrator is to be injured, they become liable in a place like New York. They become liable in California. They become liable in Washington. They become liable in Oregon. They become liable in Chicago. This is a means to scare away Good Samaritans and people who know what is morally right to do, which is to intervene, to beat the ever-loving snot out of the person who is doing that violation. But in turn, we have people that are just scared, they are withdrawn, and they just sit there and let it happen in front of them. This is the environment that they need to create. When you lose that personal connection with your neighbors, I talked about this in my, I was talking about preparedness, and it's not good to meet your neighbor for the first time in a time of crisis, right? But because of social media, because of the way we live our lives now, this very digital life, we don't know who the people living next door are. We withdraw into our devices, right? We can withdraw into our phones and let the outside world, noise canceling headphones and all that, and just pretend that the outside world isn't happening around us. And they want us to be that way. They don't want us to connect with our fellow human beings. That's dangerous to them because that helps us. They dehumanize us politically, right? People will dehumanize Republicans when it comes to their politics. They need people to see individuals. It needs for them to mentally be able to dehumanize the people around them. Then they start withdrawing, and then you have a scenario where not a single person on a bus, while a woman is being violated in the most horrific of ways by a homeless guy, that not a single person does a single thing. Whether it's out of fear, whether it's out of social withdrawal, whatever it happens to be, this is the world that they need to create. Because when the time comes for authoritarianism, for communism, for the leftists to really put the full weight of their policies into play, then it becomes like China. It becomes like Russia, where people have no problem turning in their neighbor. Why in the world would I have a problem turning in someone who I don't see as human, who's not a part of my life, who I couldn't care less about? I could sit here and watch them get assaulted, sexually on a bus in broad daylight, and I couldn't care less. But we have to be able to dehumanize. That's the way they look at it. It's really wild. I was going to talk about the guy who had the squirrel, the state of New York, while we're talking about the state of New York. I know this is a weird left turn, but I saw this and I thought, you know what? This is really what leftist government is all about. This really is. There's a guy and his wife, and they had the most, the most famous squirrel on the internet. The squirrel's name was, I think it was Peanuts, I believe is what it was called. So this man and woman, they had Peanuts the squirrel. It was famous on TikTok. What happened? Well, the city of New York came in with by the way, raided, as if they were coming into some drug lord's house, kicking down the doors, tearing their house apart to find a raccoon and a squirrel, domesticated, by the way, and had been for almost a decade. And these people run an animal rescue shelter. What did they do with the domesticated squirrel and the raccoon? Because one person made a complaint, by the way, and they don't know who it was. They don't know what they said. There's never been a complaint in the past 7 years. And yet the government came in, took their pets, and euthanized them. And this was the spokesperson, by the way, for their pet rescue that they have. They have like 300 animals at a separate place where they rescue pets and rescue other animals that have been in terrible situations. And the federal government, or not the federal government, the state government, the New York government came in, took their property, took their pets, and euthanized them because one leftist made a complaint. And imagine if this was like some environmentalist person saying they've got a squirrel and a raccoon trapped away in a urban environment, not where they're meant to be. And the state says, we have a solution for that. We'll take them and we'll put them to death. That's literally the solution that the state gave to these people. And of course, this woman is crying throughout the whole interview with TMZ. So this one person says, I think it's terrible they're keeping a raccoon and a squirrel in captivity. All right, we'll go in there and just done. Look, somebody wants to have a pet squirrel, just fine. Somebody wants to have a pet raccoon. I've seen them. I have done away with raccoons in the wild because they're rabid, but or the ones I did away with were rabid. But these people got one trained, and it was their pet. So be it. But the state government steps in for presumably somebody who said it's just terrible that these pets are living in captivity. And they say, well, our response is going to be to put it to death. And so that's what they did. It's so jacked up. But this is what happens. I mean, let people make their own dadgum decisions. I'm not a libertarian, but boy, I err on the side of libertarianism with some of these silly government regulations telling us what kind of pets we can have. If it's a danger to other people, that's one thing. But if they're in the house, who cares? Whoop-de-doo. All right. Anyway, I'm going to end on that note. Thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, leave comments below. We're on X Locals, Rumble, and YouTube. Again, hit that notification bell because it will notify you every time a new video is released. I love you guys. God bless you. God bless America. Go vote. Go vote. Go vote. And I hope you vote Donald J. Trump. We'll see you on the next one.